So that's kind of low for a lot of boats, but I tell everyone, if you're near it, you're up top. Obviously, if you got a radar system or something, take it off. You don't need a radar in those rivers. You're not. It's not. It's going to work, but it's not going to do you any good. The river's way too small to use a radar. So 15.6 is the lowest ones bridges go through. If you can't do 15.6, unfortunately, you don't get to do the half of the western eastern or the western half of the Erie. You have to go to the middle. From the eastern to the western, you split it. You go up the Oswego Lake, which goes into Lake Ontario, which are 21 feet high. All the other bridges along the way are raisable, except that one down the Sanitary Ship Canal. That is a hard bridge with the railroad bridge and does not raise. But otherwise, all the rest of them are raisable. And you just, like I said, just call on the radio to get the bridges raised. Something else about the Erie Canal, people sometimes forget, it closes down at 5 o'clock. Not meaning you can't move on it, but after 5 o'clock, you can't go through any locks. And I didn't put it in it, but I believe there's like 65 locks, I think, in the West Erie Canal. There's a lot. So you might get stuck in between ones. So it's something to be aware of while you're cruising on the Erie. The only other locks that close time-wise are the ones on Lake Okeechobee. If you decide to go, instead of going down south through the Gulf of Mexico to the Florida Straits and around the Atlantic, around the bottom of Florida, and you want to cut through the middle of Florida, which you can, no problem. Those locks close. Technically, they take the last lock at 4:30. There's 5 locks to go from the western side of Florida to the eastern side of Florida. So that's an important one to remember also. Go ahead, Lauren.
Do the locks close if there's still boats in line?
They'll take the last lock at 4:30. 4:30 will be the last one. So you show up.
Be there before 4:30.
Yep, 4:30, because that takes like 20 minutes to go through the lock, and those boys are going home at 5 o'clock on the month. Not saying I haven't bribed them with a bottle of good liquor to stay open past that time. I'm just saying what I've done.
At 5 o'clock, it's too late.
No, 4:30, it's too late. They close at 5 o'clock. Yeah.
And if you are boat number 7 and that lock can only hold 6,
You're tied to the wall.
you're tied to the wall till the next day.
Exactly. I threw this in there just because I thought it was a great picture. Watching your draft. This is Aberdeen, Mississippi, down at 10 Tom. The marina was changing hands, and the new owners really didn't care anymore about the boats coming in there. They didn't really draft. They didn't really dig the channel coming in. I show this picture just because you can see one of the markers is on a tree. I was in there with a 60-foot boat with a 5-foot draft, and it's all silty backwaters of the river. And I actually dug my way into the marina. I slowly pushed all the silt out of the way, moving it about 2-3 knots at a time going through there. But it's a big one watching you draft, because we know the props are expensive on boats and you might not be able to get them fixed or repaired along the way. So be very cautious drafting. Like Chris already said, just call out the marina and say, hey, how's your channel coming in? Because you don't want to mess up your props down there and really screw up your whole world down there. So
This gentleman has a question.
go ahead.
Are there any, or can we anticipate any COVID-related problems on the New York canal system?
I'm sure, everybody's doing the normal things we're doing, especially in the northern states. From what I've seen, I just did a trip for 7 days across the country, and it's like a whole different world in different parts. But New York definitely is, probably still very strong on their COVID stuff. That's about the best answer I can say. But is interrupting your journey? No, definitely not.
Currently, though,
I was planning to take the Welding Canal from Erie to Ontario, and I just recently found that the Canadians won't let American recreational vessels through.
Currently, Canada is not allowing American vessels recreational. The one workaround on that is you can hire a professional delivery crew to pick it up in Oswego and move it for you, and then you get it once it gets to Buffalo.
Well, I'm going the other way.
Okay, well, so you would pick them up.
Yeah. It's really common right now, actually. I mean, people pick them up in Buffalo if you want to go north, and they drop back off in can't go to town right up there, right on the Illinois or the American side when you get over there. So it is really common. But yeah, currently, as far as I know, those restrictions will be in place till February 2022. So if you have a boat that you're thinking of going up through Canada between now and then, yeah, that won't make it through the entire Erie. Yeah, that is a problem with that right now. So, or otherwise do what Chris said. Okay, yeah, we went through. So, any other questions? Anybody? Anything?
Why do most people go down the Tom Bigby, I think it's called, instead of going down the Mississippi?
We should have started with that, yeah. You can go down to Mississippi. I've never done it, and I never wanted to, and I'll tell you why. So not only is the going up down the 10 Tom Bigby, Black Warrior River much easier, much safer, smaller river, less tows aren't as large. You can get fuel. If you go down to Mississippi, your last fuel stop is technically Alton, Illinois. Okay, I think the next fuel stop after Alton is Memphis. If I remember right, if you're doing gasoline engines, it's 400 miles between fuel stops, and then I think diesel is shorter, like 350. But that's one big reason, obviously. I mean, and not saying I know captains that have done it. I mean, you can do it. It is, like I said, a little more dangerous. You don't have any marinas to pull over to. So you will be anchoring. And you definitely, like Chris said, you do not want to be cruising the Mississippi at night at all. So you'll be anchoring out in backwaters, hopefully, or behind wing dams, stuff like that. So to answer your question, you can do it, just not recommended. But if you want to be Tom Sawyer, and go ahead. Tom Sawyer did it in a different vessel than we're doing it. No, that's for sure. So, anybody else? Any questions?
Did you mention about anchoring at night, about having a second anchor you could put off the stern?
Absolutely, you can do that. Like the way we're talking about it, it's just 100% you can do that, and it's highly recommended to have a second anchorage. Chris and I don't anchor. We have, but we don't like to. Now, loopers, yes, they do go anchor. So, yeah, having a second anchor is definitely a strong recommendation to do. Either just to hold your front, just to make a double anchor, or to have you so you don't swing if you're in tidal waters, because you'll be swinging on your anchor overnight. And that makes me a little nervous, because you might pop that anchor up overnight. So second anchor will hold your boat exactly in the same place the whole time.
And the thing that you want to make sure of, you want to have an anchor watch. When the times we have anchored, I mean, we do 2-hour shifts.
But let me stop you. That's in tidal water. I would say in non-tidal water, you'd be okay. Yeah. Tidal waters, I definitely want an anchor watch going around. So once you get below, when you're on the 10 Tom, a town or a lot called Coffeeville, south of Demopolis, Alabama, you're technically in tidal waters up to below Coffeeville. So that's 210 miles to Mobile Bay from there. And then obviously anywhere else from that point on, you're in tidal waters, going along either coastal Florida all the way up to the East Coast. So,
And
go ahead.
From New York City, going north of the Hudson, how strong is the current going to get?
Now that's tidal too. That's another one I should say. So that's tidal all the way up to Troy, I believe, the Troy Lock. Yeah. I don't know. It's a big, wide river. It's long. I'd say maybe 1 to 2 knots at the most. Yeah, it's not bad. Now let me go back and reiterate something about that too. So the Illinois River, maybe 1 to 2 knot current. Mississippi, that's the one you got to tend to. Mississippi is always running about 2 to 3 knot current. Always, no matter where, like if it's not at flood stage. Once you get flood stage, actually one time I was 5 feet over flood stage, I called Hoppy's Marina, which is along the way. She said it's about 5 to 7 knots right now. That to me is way too strong. Even a boat doing 22, you're really burning fuel and really putting a lot of pressure on your running gear. So, Lauren?
Are you doing a half anchor in the Mississippi then?
Yeah, I would do an aft anchor. In the Mississippi, I'd definitely do an aft anchor, even though you're not tidal, because you're going to stay in the current. But actually, I'd probably have 3, quite honestly. 2 on my bow and 1 on my aft. Yeah. More anchors the better, right? Yeah, just to know that thing is not going to pop open in the middle of the night. But like Chris said, you can do anchor watch. You can figure out how to do on your electronics, where if it has an anchor, what is that called? Anchor monitor, basically. So if you move position, it'll trip an alarm. You start drifting off on your own. So, anybody else? Any questions?
Heard on the Ohio.
Another one that's not as strong. The Mississippi's the strongest. I mean, not at flood stage, yeah, absolutely would go up. But I'd say it's 1 to 2 knots, maybe a little more, somewhere around there. The Ohio's wide and straight, as opposed to the Mississippi does a lot of this, so that velocity of that water really starts to crank up down there. Lauren?
I read about tying up in a lock.
In a lock?
Yeah.
I've done it. Yeah. I've done it when the storm came. And the dock master's like, you don't want to go nowhere, just stay in the rock and hide down, we'll keep it low for you. But overnight, no. They'll have you tie outside the lock. On both sides of the lock's usually just, I don't know if Chicago's like that, but yeah, they'll have tie-offs you can do. So, yeah. Anybody else? Any questions? No? Let me move on.
Oh, yeah, no, it already done.
See if I can pop it. All right, so talk about equipment you want to have along. And this equipment is, the reason I'm talking about is because it's what I have. What I feel is the necessary equipment. You obviously can have tons more. And I've seen people overdo it like crazy. And sometimes I'm like, that's fine, but you kind of didn't need that. So paper charts are great. A lot of us grew up on paper charts, learned how to, navigate on paper charts. But as we know, they're very cumbersome to have. You got to have a ton of charts with you. And I'm not saying don't have them. You might be having a book, make it just a reference. But we got so much GPS, electronics today. I mean, I've navigated trips just from my phone. So that's why I go onto laptops, iPad, iPhone. I personally like iPads these days. It's just a nice, easy, inexpensive thing. You can use Navionics to do it. You can mark, you can chart from Navionics. You can have information of marinas on there. Your iPhone's another one. The other second one I use, which I find very easy, is a laptop computer. Laptops, you can buy a program of all the charts and put them inside the laptop. And then you can buy for about $100. You can buy a little USB plug-in, 6-foot long cord with a GPS receiver on it that you can put on your dashboard. And there you go. You got a $3,000 Ray Marine Electronics right there. Bring just in your laptop. You can also connect nowadays AIS into that. I'm going to talk about AIS next. AIS, I highly recommend that as strong as I possibly can do the great loop. Now, AIS used to be an expensive item to put on your boat if you do what's called full AIS. I say pirate mode. You can do pirate mode. What pirate mode is you're just receiving information. You're not transmitting your position. So you get to see what's coming and what's coming up. They can't see you, but you can see them. And the main reason for that is, especially on the rivers in the intercoastal, the rivers especially, some points they do what's called switchbacks of the river, where you'll be going and you'll literally see the river over there, and there may be a barge coming around that corner, and you want to know about it way in advance before that guy gets there. So I recommend pirate mode. You can hook it up to your VHS radio very easily through your electronics and show up on your screen. Next one, binoculars. I just say that because I've gone through so many pairs of binoculars. Get a good pair of Steiners. I recommend Steiners. I don't recommend basic, basic boat store ones. You drop them on the ground if you guys haven't experienced it, and they all of a sudden are a little bit out of whack. Plus, once you buy a good pair of Steiners, you'll never go back to the cheaper ones. Fender balls and fenders in general. You can have your basic fenders for boats, your cylinder fenders, absolutely. You don't have to have hundreds of them. 4 to 5 is usually adequate. But when you're doing the locks, fender balls, I highly, highly recommend, especially off your bow, off your curve, your bow of your boat, sailboats, especially since you're completely curved on both sides. You want to have a decent amount of mid-sized fender balls to keep you off that wall and just keep you curving like this, as opposed to the cylinders, which may get crushed up against the wall if you got push inside there. Raw water washdown, if your boat's got it, it's great to have, because you say about locks are dirty as ever. You're going to pull them fender balls up, and you're going to want to hose them off. Maybe not right away, but I've seen them bringing all types of barnacles and stuff off the side walls, and then you got that junk on your boat. It's nice to have a raw water washdown or something you got on your boat. Headsets, marriage savers, as we call them sometimes. Even if you have a small boat, it's great to have headsets, because you might be inside that boat, you're in the back on a sailboat, somebody's up front, you're yelling, you're screaming, stuff like that. They have headsets now, which are fantastic. We don't even have to push a button. They're literally just as voice activated back and forth. They're a couple $100, especially if you're on a trawler where the captain's on the inside, the first mate be out in the bow. It's always great to have headsets, or at least you're very well communicated in sign language to each other. I say how you're talking. VHF radio. You got to have a VHF radio, obviously, but I always recommend having a second one, especially a handhold. You put it on small wattage, so you're in close quarters. You're only really talking to the guy near you or the barge coming up. And if you're on a boat where your outer helm is outside, I highly recommend just putting an inexpensive West Marine speaker in, because not only you're outside, you might be moving, you can't hear it as well, but some of those towboat drivers got the strongest Southern accent I've ever heard in my life. I can't understand a single word they say sometimes. So make sure you hear what they're talking about. And I'll talk about that in a second, but whenever you're talking to a towboat driver, I always repeat back what he said to me. So I make sure I understand what he said, because it's very, very important that you either pass that tow or barge on the right side when you come around. So 100% understand. This is another big question I get is cell phones. Everybody's always getting extra external cell phone receivers and stuff like that. Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely. If you want to get that, that's fine. They're kind of expensive. But the only places I have, I put in there, the only places that I know of, I have Verizon. I can't speak for any other cell service where there's no, where the goes weak is down in Alabama, Mississippi. And then also, if you guys have been on the Great Lakes, the only place I've ever found it to be extremely weak is over on the northwestern side of Lake Huron, from like south of Mackinac down, halfway down. It's always really almost non-existent. Weapons. I get this question a lot nowadays too about weapons. That's a huge one. I'm not going deep into it, but I do carry a shotgun on board, mainly because I'm driving around $1 million plus yachts. I'm not really worried about him stealing the yacht, because I'm worried about him maybe coming on board and realizing this guy's probably got thousands of dollars on him right now because he's moving across the United States. So if you want to carry a weapon, obviously check your local laws. Concealed carry, going through different states. Them states' laws do apply to your weapon while on your vessel. So you got to make sure you're going through the right things. But I go down to the next one. Flare gun. Never shot a flare gun. That almost does more damage than a gun. So you have a weapon on board. God forbid you need it. I personally, out of all the tons of trips I've done, only one time, and it was actually with you, I actually felt slightly nervous. In the middle of the night, we were in the Tidal Waters down in South Alabama, and just in the middle of the night, we heard boats like right outside our door. We're in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, what's going on? What are these guys doing? They're coming really close to our boats. It was the only time I've ever felt a little funny about anything. So, but a lot of people do carry weapons on board their buses. So, but flare gun, no license needed, can do a lot of damage. Where's the gun? Keep going on equipment. These are a couple little simple ones that most guys hopefully already know to take with you. But my number one thing is I always get on a vessel, if you got a windshield, Rain X, 100%, because you will encounter rain, and I don't think I've ever been on a power boat where those wipers didn't break, especially if you got to run them all day. They're not made, in my eyes, to run constantly like cars are. This one I just brought up because I just changed all my fire extinguishers out on one of the vessels I run. I had my entire system, my engine room fire system checked out. But the reason I say this is because I'll have to show first mates. I'll go through first safety aspects on a boat, and I'll say, listen, we're going to test one out. You know, I want you to see how it works, because a lot of people haven't never used a fire extinguisher in their lives. They want to know how to use it right. So test out an old fire extinguisher, take it out back, blow it off, let somebody, you know, who's never touched them do it. Life jacket. We all have those life jackets now. What's the words for them? Explodable.
Suspenders.
Suspenders. Try that. See what the reaction is to that thing when it's out. God forbid you got to go overboard, but blow that thing. Just see what it does, so you're not freaked out and know what it's going to do. Same thing with flare gun. Nobody's ever shot a flare gun. I'm not saying go shoot them out in the lake and shoot them up in the air, but find a place if you can and go shoot that flare gun. Feel what it's like, see what it does, just so you know it works. And in an immediate emergency, you would need it and know what to do with it. I personally never had to do it yet. I haven't had any kind of major emergency. I've had some fires on board, electrical fires. I've had grease fires. So that's why I say if you need to use that fire extinguisher, you better know where it's at and how to use it.
And I'm going to jump back to the life jacket. You've got suspenders. And I just learned this today. I always popped it to test it, and then I had to rearm it. The good folks at Mustang, they said, why are you doing that? Just, you know, you got the manual inflate, just manually inflate it, let it sit overnight, and make sure it holds. That way you don't have to rearm it every year. So it's a good way to test it without having to rearm. So it saves you a bunch of money, and then you'll know, okay, this one's no good anymore. You know, can we fix the seam or whatever? But manually inflate it, let it sit overnight, 24 hours, and make sure that it holds air.
Okay. I didn't know that. This one, the next one, shore power splitter. I drive a lot of boats that are 50 amp. Chris and I drive kind of larger boats. I'm not saying this is necessary, but it's nice to have. If you have a 50 amp boat, to have one that splits down to 30, because you might be bumped into a smaller slip, or one only has 30 amp power instead of 50. Boat hook, we should already, most of us have it on a boat already. It's great to grab the lines and some of the locks. As Chris touched on for a second, most of the locks going down the river are bouldered, where they float with the floating pin that goes up and down. If you ever experienced it, you just tie your line around it back to your cleat. You don't have any lines hanging down, but if you go through the Erie Canal, majority of it is all lines hanging down, real nasty ones. They're not just like we have Chicago Lock. So I say recommend a boat hook and gloves. That's another thing to hold on to those lines. This one, the emergency dive gear. I have personally not had to dive under my boat to ever pull off anything yet, but I have had many things attached to my boat, and I was lucky enough to get them off the boat just by going in reverse, fast, quickly, abruptly, breaking the lines. I do have dive gear on one boat, and I just have a 5-minute tank. Got video to go in, and hopefully if I ever have to go in, it's down in the Florida Keys, or if some of you have been down there, there's crab pots and lobster traps everywhere. I've caught many of them. You might have to jump overboard and cut a line. I caught one time, 25 miles off the coast of Sarasota, rough seas, and all I heard was a thump. And the lobster trap came rolling up to the bottom of my boat and smashed against the bottom of the boat. Didn't get it off right away, and I just floored it in reverse for about 10 minutes, and it actually broke the pot off. But when I got to the harbor, I had 40 feet of line wrapped around my shaft. So have an emergency dive gear with you, at least a mask, the very minimum. You go down there with a nice knife and cut something off. This one is another high recommendation I have. EPIRB. You've all heard of it. If you haven't, emergency position indicating response people. They've come down in price dramatically. You can get them now for about $500 to $700. You mount it on your boat. The $700 ones are the kinds where you don't know what EPIRBs are. I hope the majority of you do. It's a handheld device that floats. You register with the Coast Guard, so if you go overboard, it will know your boat, your position, your name. It'll call phone numbers of people you've listed to check to see if you're where you are. Once you give someone your float plan, I highly recommend EPIRBs to be on the boat, especially out in the middle of the ocean. Or the lower version of that is your VHF radio. You log in to register your MMSI number, and at least you're transmitting something when you push the emergency button if you have a problem. As far as I know, you guys on the Great Loop, the big crossing, the main part you have to be in the ocean is Gulf of Mexico, where you'll cross either from Carabel, Florida, or Apalachicola, Florida, across the Gulf on a diagonal down to, say, Clearwater, or what's that other town?
Tarpon Springs.
Tarpon Springs. About 150 to 170 mile journey, but you are in open ocean, about 50 to 75 miles offshore. So it's good to be ready. I've never heard of any problems. No one sink, no one fires. Of all the great loopsters that's done that trip, so that's a good thing. But it's good to be prepared and know your boat. I already touched on this one about the cell phone coverage in the rural Alabama, Mississippi area, northwest of Lake Huron. So we'll pop the next one. I got a weapons firearm picture. This is my first mate, Mary. I was kind of training her with handguns. Now, I'm not saying you need a handgun, but I was showing her how to use a handgun on board, shotgun and whatnot. We were out last time. And like I said, I've never had an incident where I needed it, but I'm driving $1 million yachts, which they may think I have a ton of money on board.
I'm going to stop real quick there. One thing you do want to have, and I think it's further on, but just in case it's not, have cash. Cash is your friend. Cash is the guys that are helping you in the marinas. It's their friend. You know, nothing wrong with giving the kid that's helping you $20. If you're running late and you need to get fuel and you know that fuel dock closes at 5, you can call ahead and say, hey, we're coming in at 6. Can you talk to one of the kids? We'll take care of them. You know, keep the fuel open. A lot of these marinas will do that for you. They know we're professionals, but they will also do it for recreational boaters. Again, be nice, be courteous, ask, don't say, what do you mean you can't stay open for another half hour? Then they're going to close a half hour early.
Yeah, they will too. You know, he's got to refer to the down south version too, and they're just like, it's a northerner. All right, I'm going to shut it down. Go ahead, Lauren. What do you mean?
ATM traveling along the road?
Absolutely not. That's why I cash. And I didn't touch on that, but not only what Chris said, but here's another thing. You guys are going to be buying fuel. You're going to be buying food somewhere, possibly, whatever. You're traveling across the United States. You're going to use your credit card. It might shut down on you. I mean, I tell my bank I'm traveling, and I even tell them what states I'm traveling to, but still I've had it just shut down. And you really don't want that to happen at 5:30 when you got a kid at the dock and you got to pay for a couple $100 for fuel or whatever. So I always carry at least like $2,000 or $3,000 of cash for me just in case.
And
but
you
yeah,
can
ATMs are
buy,
not prevalent.
you can buy a really nice Honeywell safe. It's about that
Yep.
big for $30.
Yeah.
And
Harbor
just-
Freight sells them really inexpensive, so you can get
Yeah.
those. But yeah, be prepared to be on your boat. And, you know, be self-sufficient on the boat. That's what I tell everybody. Be self-sufficient because you don't really know about it. Anyways, this part I really want to talk about is going through locks, and it's more to help me to help you go through it properly because I see this constantly. So locks, like you say, you guys have probably done the Chicago River lock. It's a whole different ballgame right there. Number one thing you always know is don't come into a lock with a wake. Slow that boat down way before you get there because we know that wake just keeps bouncing everybody back and forth. If you're very close to the lock, 10 minutes out, call them because you never know. There could be a barge going through. There could be other pleasure boats going through. They will hold it for you, unlike Chicago River lock, it doesn't even answer the phone. Always when you pull on a lock, pull all the way forward. That's a big problem. We have a lot of times people stop immediately at the beginning, and then you got to go around them. And you know, some people have never done a lock in their lives doing this trip, so they don't know any better. Some locks, the lock masters will direct you, tell you what pin to even go to as you go into the lock when they talk to you on the phone. But always go forward if you're not told what to do. Your lines tying off, like I said, you're going to do bowlers, where you have the floating pin and you tie off to your cleat, center of your boat. Okay. I get lazy myself. I'll tie it off and go make a sandwich. Never do that. Anytime you're there, because it's going to float up and down with you. So you should be good. Your fender's in the right position. The boat just sits like this, doesn't do anything. But always have someone standing out there. God forbid that pin locks up. It may. I've never had one happen. But the way they clunk up and down, you'd be like, this thing doesn't look right. So always be out there and always have a knife. Serrated blade to cut that line because think what happens, your boat's going to be hanging like this. I did have it happen one time. I'm not going to talk about that. It was my fault. So, yeah, have a knife with you and be always monitoring. Never tie off on a stationary lockout. I hope we always know that. So, you know, when you got lines hanging down, what I do instead of telling people, a lot of people do this, they stand there on the side of the boat holding it. You can do that. That's fine. You're doing a lot of work. You know, if the boat starts blowing, you're using a lot of your body. I've actually known a guy who tried doing it and actually pulled his shoulder out. So my recommendation is always bring that line down to your cleat. Use your cleat as a pivot point. Don't wrap it around. Just hold it there because then you can let it slide. Just like I said, in a pivot point station. So once you do a couple of locks, you'll get them down. This is the Welding Canal, as you were talking about before, one of the biggest locks in the entire event. You go through 8 locks there. This is lock number 7, which is very turbulent. Because it's, I think that lock's about 100 years old and it was made for ships, not little plastic boats like we bring through there. But unfortunately, the moment we can't go through, but when you do go through, it's a hell of an experience, that's for sure. They put you through all 8 locks of the Welland in one day. When you start at the beginning, you're going to get through all the end in one day. Fastest I've ever done it was 10 hours. So just stop. It takes a while. Yeah. Now they're doing a little different. It may do faster because they're kind of letting you just fly through them, like in between locks, which is no wake speed. When you go from one lock to another, you go 5 knots. Now they're just going full speed go. So maybe it's a little sooner. Flip the next one. Oh, this is the Jamie Whitten lock on the 10 Tom. This is the beginning of the 10 Tom. This is an 85-foot lock right below Bay Springs Lake. And this is, like I said, the first of a whole mess of them. This one's massive. This is an impressive lock. But you'll be in and out of that lock in 15 minutes at tops, dropping 85 feet or going on. Any more questions, comments, anything? Anybody? Nothing? Anybody thinking about doing this soon? Anybody? You guys? Yeah?
Well, I'm only going half.
Well, let's say halfway's good. You know, there's nothing wrong with that.
When are you taking off?
August.
And when-
August 1.
And when are you taking off?
Next year.
Okay, perfect.
Gotcha. Lauren?
Leaving May, Virginia, coming this way.
Up this May you're leaving? You're leaving in about a month, yeah?
We're leaving Virginia in May.
Powerboat or sailboat?
So
Sailboat? Okay. Yeah. The Erie Canal's not open until May 21st this year, just so you know. That's the other thing. The Erie Canal shuts for the winter, you guys. Normally it opens up. Normally it closes October 15th and opens up May 15th. Sometimes, though, it opens late because they're working on the lock. So this year it's May 21st.
We got a question way in the back.
Oh, no, I can say we're going in 4 years.
Oh, beautiful.
You're going to know a lot by then. You're going to be all right. Don't be the first guys going through the lock because you're going to have 20 days to get up there. So you might be there. Go there the second or third day. You won't believe how many boats will be there. There'll be 30, 40 boats waiting to go the first day.
Do you have an outline of this presentation?
So Where's Mike? Mike, tell her.
Yeah, once, give us about a week or so, and this presentation will be up on the Crowley's YouTube channel.
Advertise.
You can have it over there.
Okay, we can contact you, yeah, right?
You can contact Crowley's, or if you want the PowerPoint, grab one of our business cards, send us a text, an email, and we'll send you the PowerPoint.
Joe, and I'll give you a personal consultation if you like to. Are you going with him?
No.
Probably better off for the relationship.
I was gonna say our first
I
advice.
just want to know what he's doing.
Yeah.
Your first advice is don't go with Lauren.
Put me on next one. See where we are, Chris.
Right, we got questions,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
and then we'll go to the middle.
Let's see, going from Lake Erie to the Hudson on the New York Canal system. What's the air draft?
So like I said at the beginning, okay, so if you want to do the whole Erie from Lake Erie to the Hudson,
Right.
you're 15.6 on the western half from about Rochester to Buffalo. And yeah, and then on the eastern half, you're 21 feet from Rochester to Waterford. Yeah. Always like I said, you can always drop stuff down if you can get your boat low enough. You know, we do it all the time.
My concern is the radar.
Take it off.
I'll have to take my.
Yeah,
And
just take it off.
that brings up one other point. Know your draft fully loaded, and when you're down to your last gallon of fuel, you
It'll
got
come
no
up.
water.
Yeah.
Know how much load you have on your boat, because your draft can change 6-8 inches.
Plus, when you go down in saltwater, your boat floats a little bit more. But I always tell everybody to actually get up on top of your boat, take a board, drop down a tape measure to water, and measure it, so you know exactly what you are. You know. You have a question?
Yeah, recommendations for people to step their ass, Albany, and ship it to London.
I think it is Albany. I think it's the Albany Yacht Club that does that. Right below, or right in the town of Albany. I'm pretty sure they're the last, or first or last guys that'll do that.
We don't want to carry it.
I know. I can't. I've never done a sailboat up there, so I can't say I have a.
I will say this, and that brings up a great point. If you can ship your mast, because you got a 35-foot boat, you got a 50-foot mast. You're going to be coming into locks, and you may not have room for that whole mast. So you don't want that. Plus, you want your deck clear. You get into an emergency, and now all of a sudden you're climbing over your mast. You're getting hooked up. If you can ship it, ship it. That's our best advice.
The Erie's got small locks too. Yeah, so sometimes it's tight. Anybody else got a question?
You had one, sir, in the middle.
No.
As you mentioned, it's common for people to go 50 miles or so offshore in the Gulf on the Great Loop. Why don't they go to Pensacola, Tampa, etc.?
You mean why don't they go around the curve? The Forgotten Coast, as the Floridians call it.
Right.
You can. It's extremely shallow.
Shallow.
Yes, you can do it. But the intercoastal, officially ends in Carabel, which is, I don't know, bump back, but you got Florida here curving, right? Carabel's right at the top of that curve. And the intercoastal after that is it's not kept to get all the way down to Florida. So that's why people jump across. And I mean, I think the farthest point is Carabel, and then you could jump across 80 miles to Stanahatchee, Florida. But there's another place that's very shallow draft. I couldn't get a 50-foot boat in there. And it's a place you want to go in and tide at mid to high tide. So you got to time that which you're crossing along with the weather, which is not an easy task to do. I mean, I look at 5 different weather apps before I cross that Gulf of Mexico. As you go through if you jump from Carabel down to, say, Clearwater, which seems to be the normal jump, or Tarpon Springs, just north of Clearwater, you're actually crossing multiple weather zones there. And you always have a predominant north wind. So you've got to make sure that crossing is going to go well. And then you want to time the tides too. So it could be difficult.
And on that note, as far as apps, you can never have too many weather apps. Seriously.
No, we all know that.
But know how to use them. I mean, know that when you're looking at windy, that, depending on how many arrows there are and everything else, and that you can time lapse it and really get familiar with all the weather stuff before you need it. I mean, I love my radar. A lot of my friends hate it, but I've learned how to use my radar better than anything else as far as weather patterns. But find the ones that you know, you like, and get just so it's automatic for you.
Do you have favorite electronic charts?
Me personally, I use Navionics on iPad. Love that. But I have a program called CMAX that I've gotten from Blue Water Charts down in Fort Lauderdale. If anybody's ever heard of that great store, which is on my laptop computer, which is my laptop computer is also a touchpad, which turns into a giant iPad. And that's my favorite, called CMAX. But there's several out there that go on your laptop.
Yeah, I like Navionics because it's on my iPad, it's on my phone. Some people, I think, what is the other one? Navex? iNavex.
Aquamaps,
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Aqua.
Okay.
Okay.
I've heard of that one too.
Yeah.
Lauren, question?
Erie Canal on the red on the right or left?
I don't remember. That comes to my next questions. I'm going to tell you something about that too. The whole trip around, the reds and the greens will be completely different constantly. I make cheat sheets and I put them on the dashboard. I make an actual symbol of red and green. You know what river I'm on and flipping around or whatever, because you think, oh, I'm not going to forget. Yeah, somehow you do. I can't remember right now off the top of my head.
Have they finished the work on the Illinois lock?
Yeah, that's all completed. That got ended last November. Yeah, it's all done. So they're all done. Anybody else? Or I'll go move on. Good. Flip me on this. Here we go. So this is the next section about navigational aids, like we're just already talking about, weather apps, stuff like that. My number ones, we'll start with Quimby's. Quimby's, if nobody's ever heard of it, you can get it on Amazon. Spiral bound book. Has all the marinas, everything about marinas, but not like, what restaurant to go to, how to see the towns. Very navigational, helpful. That's number one for the river system. The next one for the whole country and for the rivers is Skipper Bob's, if some of you may or may not heard of that. That's great. Now, that was kind of built for sailboaters, Skipper Bob's, if you don't know. So that has a ton of anchorages and explains them very in-depth from how far exactly to go into maybe a backwater and what the bottom is and everything. It's very, very, very detailed. The third one will be Waterway Guide. Now, that one's the one I say kind of talks about towns and what to go see, tourist attractions, but it also gives you all the marinas and that pertinent information or what they have at the marinas, fuel and stuff like that. But you're going to spend a lot of money on Waterway Guides and do the whole Great Loop because I think there's 5, maybe 6 you have to buy to complete the whole thing. So the Welding Canal and Erie Canals, they used to give out guidebooks at the beginning of the Erie Canal. They don't anymore. So now everything's pretty much online at, I should have put that up there, but it's New York Waterways for the Erie Canal. The Welland also, all the information is online. If you go through the Welland, you can pay for your $200 fee to go through the Welland online. You get a ticket number, and then you pull up the check-in, and you're all good to go. But those ones are all online.
You will also, if you go in the Welland, you have to have 3 people on your boat to go through.
For down, is it downbound or upbound?
Upbound.
No, if you're coming from Lake Ontario to Buffalo, which is actually downbound. Upbound, you only need 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, but otherwise you need 3. I didn't want to go super deep.
Sorry, but just know that if you're coming from the area and you jump out, when you get to the Welland, you will have to hire and usually you just hire a local guy, and they're available for a couple $100. And sometimes they will actually be able to get you through that canal quicker than if you're on your own, because they do this for a living. Some of these guys, they just every morning they pick up another boat and they go. So
now, just to make sure you guys hear what he said, if you're doing the Great Loop, I'm showing it the wrong way, but if you're doing it in counterclockwise way, well, you should.
Counterclockwise, yes.
So you'd be coming, if you have to go into Lake Ontario because you can't make the whole Erie, you have to go through the Welland Canal through Canada. If your boat cannot get through 15'6". So you have to go to Lake Ontario up by Oswego, New York, and you cross over to the beginning of the Welland, the north side of the Welland. And when you come through there, I can't remember if it's called downbound or upbound. It's downbound. You're going to go down in waters. I don't remember. It's got to be downbound. You need 3 people.
No, you're going up.
You're going up?
Yes.
I'm getting confused. All right, yeah, you're right. The thing is filling.
Yes, you're
It's
filling.
filling with water.
And-
Sorry. So the reason is because they require the captain at the helm with the engine running, and then 2 line holders, one at the stern and one at the bottom. So you have to have 3 on board. When you're going the opposite direction, you only need 1 line holder. instead of capping down. So
Because they pump so much water, you literally will feel like you're in whitewater. You're just getting tossed and turned, and
it's a lot less than it used to be. It's not as bad. It used to be kind of scary. Now it's not too bad. So. Anyway, all right, let's
he
move on.
lies.
Let's move on. Local Notice to Mariners. It's a weekly publication. If you guys have never heard of that, you can find it online at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And you the main one I'd say you want is for District 8, which is the Western River System. Something to check before you go on. It tells you about too much. So it takes a little bit of looking through there to see if anything's pertinent to where you're going. AGLCA, American Great Loop Association. Highly recommend to join. You can ask tons of questions on there. There's forums. There's tons of information on there. It's like $50 a year to join. AGLCA, join that. The other one is the CaptainJohn.org. That's a great website. It has incredible amounts of information on it. It's been around for a long time. Everything you want to know about the Great Loop is on it, and very detailed, and specifically about mileage, use, everything you want to know. A daily chart or daily checkup if you're on the rivers is ingrambarge.com. That one will tell you about if there's any immediate locks broken or stopped, or if anything's flooding. That's another one to check real quick, and they update it every morning at 6 a.m. If you get down to the ocean, you want to have a tide app, which is always good to have, and know where you're going with that tide. If you got a shallow draft boat, especially if you're going into an inlet off the ocean, if you guys have never done, the tide's going against you, the wind's going another way. You know you're going to have a collision of water. It's going to be rough that day. Boating forecast, we already touched on that. They have several weather apps out there. Look at least 3 of them minimum to go from there. Tows, bars, and marinas. Tow captains. And remember that they're called tows. They're really not called barges or pushers or any of that stuff. They call them tows. Be nice to the tow captains. They are your own friend out there. Make sure, like I already touched on, to communicate with them well, hear what they have to say, repeat it back to them. Always monitor VHF radio, and then when you get in the rivers, you want to definitely monitor their working channel, which is usually 12 or 13, and see what they're doing out there, as opposed to working 16. Another reason you could have 2 radios, one on 16, one on the working channel. Learn and know, and just go back to Lauren's question about the red and green and stuff like that. Know what 1 and 2 whistle means. That's the passing of a boat or coming head on to it. What side they want to tell you to go on, the 1 or the 2, forward or starboard. Know which one's which. Absolutely, because sometimes you can't hear those guys well, and you want to repeat it back to make sure it's right. Chris already touched on Towboat US. Great to have that for whatever is $150 a year. They should break down. Talking about marinas, like we already talked on, call ahead to marinas when you're about, maybe a day out. Make sure you got a slip. Make sure you got enough deep enough water. You got everything you need. Some of them have courtesy vehicles, so you guys can go to Walmart. It's kind of getting lesser and lesser these days. Courtesy vehicle might have 3 wheels, might have a steering wheel, but it'll get you there. It'll be okay. Laura?
Are you better off calling on the radio or phone?
For the marina?
Yeah.
I'd call on the phone. Because, the radio, you're going to have to be real close. But, I'm calling ahead, like, you want to go to the marina today? Be like, all right, I'm going to call them this morning. Reserve my spot, make sure the water's good, everything works. Anything funny about getting into their marina, maybe there's some silt, stuff like that. So Chris already touched on this. We like to really go on this because the dock hands are your friends. They know a lot about what's going on out there. We tip them. We tip them well. We have lots of stories of funny stuff happening with dock hands. So those guys are very helpful in many ways out there.
One thing going back to the tow captains is realize if you're going at 8-10 knots, they're going to be going at 4 or 5 knots. You might pass them, and then the next day, because they've been running overnight,
You'll pass them again.
You'll pass them again, and you want to be their friend. And they can, if you're going into a lock, there are some situations where it's a commercial tow going in. There might be room on the right-hand side that he can let you come in alongside him, but it is his discretion.
It is the towboat guy's discretion what goes on.
And if you've been a jerk, no, I don't want anybody in here with me. If you've met them a couple times on the river, yeah, these guys are okay. Come on in. They'll tell you where to tie off on their barge sometimes. You'll tie off to them. Sometimes you'll tie off to the wall. They'll tell you, okay, I'm going to get out of here first, or they'll say, you go out first. Just communicate and be nice.
Put it this way, the towboat guy can actually change your entire day. Because if you don't get in with that guy, like he said, or maybe the towboat's going to let you go ahead of him. Be like, yeah, go ahead. I'm going slow, whatever. Even though they got the right. He can screw your whole day up because it could be hours delayed. And now you might not make your marina at night. or before nightfall or wherever you want to go. So that's how we've seen it. The only reason we bring it up, we've seen tons of people like try to fly past tows and just, I'm getting there ahead of you. It's like, slow down. Slow down. But the nice one. So there's a lot of stuff. I've tried to get it kind of detailed for you guys, but this is about in the intercoastal and the ICW. If you haven't overtaken a vessel before, make sure you talk to the people. This is a huge one too. We see this constantly. Passing close to a vessel to get by. A lot of people, you're coming up behind somebody, maybe you're going, 10 miles an hour, doing 5, whatever. What happens is you call them, say, having to come around your port side, they'll immediately go to the shore. And what that does, it's not only dangerous to them, but they might be going on shallow waters, but as he goes to the shore to try and get by him, you're splitting farther and farther apart, and your weight takes longer and longer to get to that guy. You understand that? See, you're trying to get by him without waking him. So if you stay on course and maybe pull back your speed, and that boat goes to pass you, he's by you in a second. He's getting right by you. Come close to the boat. Don't be 5 feet away, but don't be 100 feet away. You'll never get by the guy. We see it all the time, especially with sailboaters. I hate to say, you see a big boat coming, and they all of a sudden go straight to the bank. And I'm like, just stay right where you are. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm coming by you, and I'm going to be slow, and but stay your course, pull back in your speed. And that's basically what I said right here. This is a big one with this picture. People put dinghies on the back of their boat all the time. Power boats, sailboats have them hanging, blocks their name. This guy did a real simple one. He did an interesting thing. He flipped over the cover and just stenciled the name on from like the hardware store with a can of paint. And so have your name visible on the back of your boat. It's very important in communicating out there. Because when I come up to the back of the boat, back to somebody come up to the back of somebody's boat, they're not listening to the radio. You got to come and pass them. I can't hail the guy. I don't know his name. He's not listening to the radio. I'm now down to horn signals to try and tell him I'm coming by. So have your name on the back of your boat if you got a dinghy in the way. Like I said already, stay close. State your course when being passed or overtaken. Stay close to the center line so you don't go off course. You go into shallow waters. And while you do that, watch the debris, especially for rivers. Because I've seen that too. I've seen boats go off, all of a sudden hit a tree in the water. And now I got to help them. So anyhow. And there's the basic whistle signals for head-on overtaking. If everybody doesn't know it already, learn it, know it, and that goes back to I'm gonna just say this first because I don't think I said it about the red and greens, which Lauren was asking. But I flip to the next one real quick. This is
Nope.
No. I think I explained it, but like Lauren was asking if the green or red is which way is it on the Erie. We'll go in a full thing, but you will go on different rivers. Your coastal, some of them are upbound rivers. The markers will change. You have red on one side, you'll turn into a river. Now your red's on the other side. I make cheat sheets, little symbol, piece of paper, put them on the dashboard. When you flip to another river, flip them the other side.
Like when you're going on the intercoastal, you will go past an inlet. And at one point, you're going down and you're red on the right, green on the left. When you get the other way, all of a sudden, once you've passed the outlet, you've now switched.
Yeah.
So make sure that you understand that. I mean, the good news is on Navionics and everything else, they switch for you. You all of a sudden see, okay, wow, the buoys, the markers flipped. But this is a big one for when crossing tows. If all else fails, and okay, yeah, get me on the one, and all of a sudden, you don't have this up at the helm, or you just have your brain melts. Would you like me on your port or your starboard side?
Yep.
You don't have to go one or two, port or starboard. Everybody knows port's left, starboard's right. So worst case scenario, don't get all caught up on one whistle, two whistle, everything else. It's great to know because this is the way they're going to talk, but all else fails, port or starboard.
Tides is another one. Is a great picture. This is somebody was asking about the Hudson, I think, the current. This is on the Hudson River. I can't remember how far up, and the tide was quite dramatic that time. You can see it's about probably about 3 feet, and we had to borrow that to get off the boat. So know if you're tying up to a non-floating dock, how to get off your boat if you have to. Now, look at the angle of that. Tony almost fell in the water that day. Anyhow. The infamous Chris Connors saying, Goes well. Eat some cheese, drink some wine, and no negative waves. You stay positive out there like we like on boating, and it'll all work out. It's all good stuff. So have some fun along the way. I've seen people get off the boats and get docks, and there's fights going on, and somebody's getting off and stuff like that. So it's just you're out there having a good time. And it's not a race. It's not a competition. It's not a job. And some people, it turns into them for them. They get, gotta get there, gotta get there, gotta do this. So don't do that. Don't do that. Make plans, but have backups, locks, mechanical issues, weathers can change anytime. And have a backup plan, what you're gonna do in case you don't get to where you're going today. Remember, you're just going for a boat ride. Trick of a lifetime. And Joan doesn't get to go more. Questions? Anybody else got anything else to have? Anything else? Yes, sir.
Another one about the route. Can you say something about the Trent Severn and also about going up to Lake Champlain and continuing north?
I wish I could. I've never done it.
It's on my bucket list.
I'm sorry to
Never
tell
done
you
it.
that, but I've never done it.
It does work. You can
Yep.
go up.
Yep, you can go up. Yep.
And then they lift your boat out of the water or something and
The lift, the one you're talking about, the real big lift, I think it's called the Radu Canal. I probably say it wrong. That's on the Trent Severn. It's actually on it. The one thing I know about Trent Severn is they only, I think, navigationally tell you it's 6 feet deep, but I've heard sometimes less. So I got a deeper boat. I wouldn't go up in a boat more than 3.5 foot draft. So, but I hear it's amazingly beautiful and something to absolutely do. So, but I can't speak from experience. Okay. Anybody else? Anything?
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your attention. And
Hope I answered some questions.